A lone knight, battered and bleeding, barely stands amidst the fallen, signaling the end of a brutal battle. He bows his head in defeat, his legendary spear, Lugia, offering little comfort in his final, painful moments. Then the timeline shifts, and a young boy is informed that his parents' insurance payments will now be managed by his uncle. The man with the monocle, Joshua's other supposed guardian, smiles with satisfaction over the arrangement. The older men press the boy for his signature, dismissively calling him Damien. They dismiss his concern, urging him to sign the papers without further inspection. The bearded man, who claims to be Joshua's uncle, offers a false reassurance to trust him. The young boy clenches the document, his hidden thoughts churning beneath the surface. Then, defying them outright, he tears the document, demanding his inheritance directly. The uncle is shocked and enraged by Joshua's unexpected rebellion. With a sharp stare, Joshua lays out a series of demands for special conditions to prevent any unauthorized disbursement of his inheritance. His clenched fist subtly vibrates, hinting at a hidden strength the men vastly underestimate. Enraged, his uncle grabs Joshua by the collar, screaming at his bold defiance. Joshua smiles, admitting he had anticipated this confrontation and was ready for it. Before the man can react, Joshua delivers a stunning punch directly to his face. As his uncle collapses, Joshua stands over him, grateful that the man's corrupt nature has not changed. Joshua then turns his cold stare towards the monocled man, who flinches in fear. Intimidated, the monocled man offers to add any special conditions Joshua desires. As the man grovels, Joshua recalls a past life where, at 13, he was powerless to stop these same machinations. But this time, with his memories and experience, Joshua knows things will be entirely different. A scene from Joshua's past life unfolds under a harsh moonlight. His blood-soaked armor and the bodies around him paint a grim picture of a brutal conflict. Even victorious, Joshua is worn and questions the wisdom of the operation. Joshua, a high-ranking officer of the kingdom of Barab, had been assigned an impossible task: to defeat an army of 2,000 with only 100 men. The impossible odds and heavy losses fuel his anguish. His eye, streaked with blood and tears, reflects the horror of the battlefield. Reaching out to a fallen comrade, Joshua confronts the terrible cost of the mission. The mission was technically accomplished, but the devastating price made it a hollow victory. Surrounded by his fallen comrades, Joshua blames himself, wishing he had possessed greater strength to protect them. Overwhelmed by despair and exhaustion, Joshua finally collapses. He coughs up blood, realizing the full extent of his own fatal injuries. Accepting his fate, Joshua recognizes his own end is near. As his consciousness fades, his thoughts wander to the inevitability of his demise. One last tear escapes his eye, a silent testament to his deep regret. He remembers a time when he reigned supreme on the battlefield, leading his allies with firm resolve. The scene culminates in a fatal strike, ending his past life. Despite the certainty of his death, Joshua senses an impossible continuation. He realizes these were not mere dreams, but vivid memories of his previous existence. The young Joshua sits up in his bed, shaken by the intensity of his past life's demise. He stares at his small, youthful hands, an undeniable confirmation of his rebirth into a new, younger body. Joshua inspects his body, wondering if his mana core, vital for warriors, is still present. He confirms to himself that he will be able to cultivate mana in this life as well. His thoughts drift to the harsh reality of his current life, where he survived on the streets. Abandoned as an orphan, he recalls taking the blame for a street gang leader and ending up in prison. His freedom was short-lived, as he was forcibly conscripted from prison and sent to war. Even while shackled and forced into military service, Joshua's innate potential began to manifest. Back in his bed, Joshua muses on the irony of someone like him rising to the rank of officer in his previous life. He allows himself a moment to absorb the weight of his past and present. A sudden noise jolts Joshua awake, his eyes snapping open with a focused stare. He sits up, realizing he has uninvited guests, and instinctively prepares for danger. Without hesitation, Joshua reaches under his pillow and grips a concealed dagger. The doorknob slowly turns, confirming his suspicions of an impending intrusion. The door creaks open, signaling the entrance of the unknown assailants. Before they can fully enter, Joshua ambushes the intruders with a swift, aerial strike. His dagger finds its mark, drawing blood from the surprised assailant. Though the strike wasn't as deep as he intended, the intruder's pained scream confirms its impact. An enraged assailant recovers and lunges forward, vowing to kill Joshua. Displaying incredible agility, Joshua evades the incoming attack. The assailant presses his attack, dagger aimed to finish Joshua. With a quick block, Joshua skillfully parries the deadly blade. Joshua continues his swift offense, landing another precise hit on his opponent. With the assailant subdued, Joshua demands to know who sent him. The other intruders lie incapacitated, bleeding out on the floor. Joshua presses the assailant for answers, refusing to let him evade the question. Joshua directly names Parker as the likely culprit, revealing his suspicions about the architect of this attack. Joshua's patience wears thin as he intensifies his demand for a confession. A new presence emerges, drawing Joshua's sharp attention. Joshua identifies the newcomer as Muckman, surprising the cloaked figure. Joshua connects Mukman's presence to the earlier attack, realizing a deeper scheme is at play. Joshua delivers a decisive strike before his mind plunges into a flashback, specifically 17 years ago. In the past, a young Joshua is captured, and even then he questioned how easily he was found after fleeing to the slums. The flashback continues to reveal the harsh reality of Joshua's early capture. Joshua now suspects that the man profiting from his past capture and enslavement was none other than Parker. With his past connection revealed, Joshua ruthlessly eliminates the compromised assailant. Joshua stands over the fallen intruders, his dagger still stained with the blood of his enemies. Joshua's realization solidifies into a fury. Parker not only orchestrated the attack, but also likely sold him into servitude years ago. Muckman observes Joshua's burning rage with a faint smile. Without a word, Muckman launches a swift attack, his sword drawn against Joshua. Muckman's powerful lunge connects, sending Joshua stumbling from the impact. Despite taking the hit, Joshua taunts Muckman, challenging his strength and control over the fight. Joshua finds himself overwhelmed by a coordinated flurry of strikes from the surrounding enemies. His body, accustomed to countless blows and brushes with death, instinctively anticipates every movement. By observing minute details like his opponent's step, torso angle, and shoulder movement, Joshua can predict their next attack. With his opponent's intentions laid bare, Joshua evades the attack. Muckman, frustrated by Joshua's elusive movements, shouts an insult, unaware that Joshua finds his attacks entirely predictable. Joshua seizes Muckman's attacking hand, turning the tables in the confrontation. Muckman's weapon clatters to the floor, leaving him vulnerable. Joshua follows through with a precise strike, forcing Muckman to his knees. Muckman snarls in pain and fury, struggling to voice his outrage. Joshua's swift counterattack leaves Muckman gasping for air, a dagger now piercing his chest. Muckman stares in shock, unable to comprehend how a mere boy could have so thoroughly bested him. Joshua mercilessly extracts his dagger, leaving Muckman to collapse from the grievous wound. Staring up at his young assailant, Muckman is overcome with terror at the chilling disparity between Joshua's appearance and his lethal skill. Joshua leans in, asking if Muckman wants to understand how he was so easily defeated. The young spearman, his eyes glowing with a sinister red, stands ready to deliver his chilling explanation. Joshua coldly explains that there's nothing special about his defense. He sees where his opponents will strike the moment they begin their motion. Muckman's face twists in a mixture of fear and dawning horror as the true depth of Joshua's combat prowess becomes apparent. Joshua presses the dagger deeper, asserting that his unmatched foresight is an undeniable fact, regardless of Muckman's shock. Muckman attempts to threaten Joshua with the wider implications of his defeat, but Joshua coldly reminds him that dead men tell no tales. With Muckman's fate sealed, Joshua cuts straight to the chase, demanding confirmation that Parker orchestrated this entire assault. Muckman remains silent, caught between revealing his accomplice and facing Joshua's deadly resolve. Joshua intensifies the pressure, warning Muckman to answer truthfully if he wishes to avoid a lifetime of disability. Muckman finally confesses that Parker ordered them to leave Joshua barely alive, which Joshua acknowledges with chilling finality. Muckman barely has time to react before a swift, glowing strike seals his fate. Clutching his throat as blood gushes, Muckman collapses in a final scream of horror and shock. As Muckman falls lifelessly, Joshua affirms the necessity of his actions. Joshua, unblinking, declares his intention to eliminate all loose ends. Joshua reflects on a 30-year lesson. It is always best to avoid making enemies. However, if an enemy does appear, Joshua knows there is only one true course of action. His firm resolve is confirmed as he steps over the lifeless bodies, crushing his foes. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the night passes with an uneasy quiet. A hooded figure checks a pocket watch, mistakenly believing the mission is now complete. Parker impatiently wonders why Joshua hasn't been brought to him yet. While the hooded figure assures him the job is nearly done, the hooded figure observes Parker's intense fury, noting the unexpected difficulty of capturing a mere boy. Parker seethes with rage, consumed by his intense hatred for Joshua. The hooded figure coldly reminds an enraged Parker to be patient, adding a stern warning against renegotiating the payment due to the slight delay. The hooded figure asserts their position, prompting a slight startle from Parker. The hooded figure announces the arrival of reinforcements, while Parker laments that an existing contract prevents him from tearing Joshua apart. Parker, fueled by hatred, vows to resolve the contract issue before ensuring Joshua's absolute destruction. The hooded figure questions the unexpected delay, sensing a problem with the operation. Impatient, the hooded figure kicks open the door to investigate the silence. The hooded figure grimly realizes their forces have failed, startling Parker with the news. Joshua strides into the room, spear in hand, directly confronting the surprised conspirators. The hooded figure assesses Joshua's unexpected and very much alive presence. The hooded figure addresses Parker directly, a cold intent in their voice. Parker reels in shock as the hooded figure demands triple the payment due to the unexpected difficulties. The hooded figure coldly justifies the increased cost, citing their substantial losses in the failed attempt. The bloodied blade serves as a chilling testament to the violence Joshua unleashed upon his attackers. As Joshua radiates a powerful aura, the hooded figure acknowledges him as an entirely unforeseen and formidable opponent. The hooded figure grimly considers Joshua not just an opponent, but an unpredictable variable that complicates everything. Despite the unfolding threat, Parker remains fixated on the impossible demand of triple payment. The hooded figure threatens to abandon the contract, forcing Parker into a desperate plea. Parker's panic intensifies as he realizes the imminent danger from Joshua. Joshua's eyes glow with an unsettling power, further terrifying Parker. Cornered by fear, Parker desperately agrees to the triple payment, knowing his life depends on it. With the payment secured, the hooded figure adjusts their grip, ready to face Joshua. The hooded figure declares this fight is business, but Joshua's focused stare reveals a deeply personal grudge. Joshua's personal grudge is not a simple matter. It's born from unstoppable pursuit and threats of utter destruction. He recalls the agony of past betrayal, a moment when his spirit and body were shattered. The hooded figure initiates a lightning-fast attack. The hooded figure is caught off guard, realizing Joshua is far more tenacious than anticipated. The hooded figure grimly acknowledges Joshua's exceptional and unexpected skill. Joshua presses his attack, forcing the hooded figure to recoil from a powerful strike. The hooded figure perceives a calculated strategy in Joshua's aggressive approach. This fighting prowess is not new, reflecting Joshua's long-standing mastery of the spear. The hooded figure retaliates with a vicious dagger strike, aiming to disable Joshua's leg. With startling agility, Joshua narrowly evades the targeted strike. The hooded figure launches what they consider to be their true decisive attack. To the hooded figure's shock, Joshua counters their powerful assault. Joshua expertly wields his spear, catching the hooded figure off guard as they realize the true danger it poses. Joshua delivers a devastating blow, sending the hooded figure staggering. Joshua confirms a long-held suspicion, having seemingly anticipated his opponent's moves. Parker watches in horror as the hooded figure is defeated, shocked by Joshua's power. Parker, overwhelmed with fear, vows revenge despite his utter helplessness. Despite his wounds, the hooded figure laughs defiantly, hinting at an unexpected resilience or darker purpose. Joshua acknowledges the hooded figure's superior strength compared to the previous attackers, yet he remains unimpressed. Joshua stands triumphant over his defeated foe, his glowing eyes fixed on his next target. Parker desperately pleads for his life, uttering a name with desperate hope. Joshua takes an unwavering step, closing the distance to the terrified Parker. A large sum totaling 6 platinum and 650 gold is successfully credited to an account. Joshua confirms the successful receipt of insurance payouts, indicating a concluded transaction. Joshua expresses his continued trust in the man, who respectfully affirms his commitment. The man, sensing an impending departure, cautiously asks about Joshua's next destination. The grand carriage suggests Joshua is preparing for a journey of long distance. Joshua's expression is contemplative as he repeats the implied destination: the army. Joshua embarks on his journey, his carriage carrying him through the scenic countryside. As the carriage continues, Joshua's focused stare shows he has already made up his mind. A subtle smile crosses Joshua's face as he acknowledges his inevitable path to the military. Joshua's thoughts project 5 years into the future, foreseeing a world fundamentally changed by widespread forced conscription. The ominous premonition continues, painting a grim picture of an inescapable era of war. Joshua reflects on a crucial past event, remembering how he narrowly preserved his mana core from irreparable damage. With renewed resolve, Joshua decides to volunteer for military service now, leveraging his youth and intact abilities. Joshua activates a complex magical circle, setting his sights on applying to the prestigious 3rd training camp. Gazing out, Joshua makes a silent vow. He will not be a mere pawn in the coming age. With a glint in his eye, Joshua resolutely declares his intention to become the master of his own fate and the era. Joshua's journey culminates at a vast, imposing fortress, his new destination. A spear wrapped in mana cuts forward with terrifying speed and precision. Nearby observers are shocked that someone so young can move with such skill. Joshua pushes through a brutal session, his powerful spear movements reflecting intense effort. Joshua looks down at his hand, marked by the force of his training. He compares these young hands with the scarred hands he remembers from war. An officer approaches, questioning Joshua about his status as a new recruit. Impressed by Joshua's skill, the officer asks about his training, making Joshua wonder if his unique technique was recognized. The so-called kingdom's best spear art is only the basic technique taught to every soldier. Joshua explains his proficiency came from his late father, prompting the officer to apologize for prying. Joshua's heartfelt explanation about his father's influence resonates, and his application is accepted with high regard. The officer reacts with surprise, momentarily taken aback by Joshua's quick acceptance. Recovering his composure, the officer then requests Joshua's name. The young spearman introduces himself to the officer under the alias Damien. The officer acknowledges the name and offers words of encouragement for Joshua's journey ahead. Joshua politely thanks the officer as he turns to leave. A surge of magical energy flares around Joshua's hand, catching him by surprise. Joshua recognizes this powerful sensation, one that has been long absent. A triumphant smile spreads across Joshua's face as he realizes he can finally wield mana once more. The surge of mana confirms his awakened potential. He focuses on the familiar power now flowing through him again. With this breakthrough, Joshua's path to regaining his full strength has begun. Joshua acknowledges the arduous conditions required to access and manipulate this renewed power. He recalls how his mana core was shattered in his past life, leading him to painstakingly master this unique method in desperate hope of a miracle. Joshua remembers a time when others mocked his desperate efforts to master a new mana technique, believing he could never wield it. He recalled how those unstoppable provocations often ignited his fierce temper. Now, with mana finally flowing through him again, Joshua knew his past struggles were not in vain, and he was ready for the upcoming tests. A firm resolve settles in his eyes as he prepares for what comes next. As he walks, another thought crosses his mind. He wondered what Caesar Van Britten, a figure from his previous life, might look like now. Joshua joins a large group of applicants at the training grounds for the first trial. The first challenge tests raw strength by making each candidate lift a stone. He realized the simple task of lifting a stone weighing over 30 kilograms above one's head was designed to quickly eliminate any unqualified candidates. Using the name Damien, Joshua easily lifts the heavy stone and passes the first round. He acknowledged that achieving even level 1 mana made such a basic strength test feel like child's play. With the first stage of trials concluded, the applicants eagerly awaited the announcement for the next phase. A booming voice from the official declared the start of the second trial. The next challenge is a long-distance race with a 90-minute limit, and minor collisions are allowed. However, direct attacks against other participants are strictly forbidden. Hidden instructors are placed among the runners to enforce the rules and disqualify anyone who leaves the course. Joshua couldn't help but smile, finding this particular challenge quite interesting. The red line of the racetrack stretches ahead of the gathered applicants. Joshua was surprised to hear another applicant ask if they were in the same group. The blond man confirmed he was speaking to Joshua, revealing he had been watching him closely for a while. Joshua found himself intrigued, feeling an inexplicable familiarity with the blond stranger's face. The blond man pressed Joshua, asking if he didn't understand the reason for the attention. Apple then dropped a bombshell, revealing that he knew Joshua possessed mana. Joshua considered how the other boy could have discerned his mana, suspecting either noble backing or a deeper secret. Realizing the implication, Joshua felt a surge of recognition and urgently asked the blond boy for his name. The blond introduced himself as Apple, a name that deeply shocked Joshua due to its unexpected origin. Joshua recognized the name, remembering him as a legendary figure who ascended to general and count by age 30. Apple reiterated his focus on Joshua, implying a lack of other notable candidates in the trials. Deciding there was no reason for hostility, Joshua accepted Apple's gesture, solidifying an unexpected alliance between them. An official's booming command snapped everyone back to attention, announcing the race was about to begin. The second trial begins as the applicants rush forward, fighting for an early lead. Joshua watched as many contenders sprinted ahead, quickly creating a chaotic mass of runners. He noted with some surprise how fiercely many applicants charged from the start, questioning their immediate expenditure of energy. Joshua considered the common understanding that breaking through the initial crowd was crucial for success in the race. The safer strategy would be to conserve energy at the back and overtake everyone near the end. But Joshua has no interest in playing it safe and bursts ahead at full speed. Apple, ignoring Joshua's sudden burst, instructed his companion to maintain a steady pace, anticipating the real struggle would begin later. Another participant observed Joshua's unstoppable speed, questioning the wisdom of such an aggressive, potentially unsustainable pace. He growled in frustration, perceiving Joshua's unmatched speed as an outrageous defiance of common race strategy. Complaining about Joshua's bold speed, the brown-haired man received instructions from a more imposing figure to intimidate Joshua into understanding his limits. The intimidator smugly declared his intent to gently block Joshua, extending a hand to shove him aside. But Joshua's explosive burst of speed defied the man's attempt to halt him, leaving the attacker shocked. Joshua continued his unstoppable sprint, leaving the now flustered opponent behind in his dust. Alarmed by Joshua's unchecked speed, unseen instructors furiously demanded that someone finally stop it. Joshua knew the instructors were undoubtedly stronger than the ordinary candidates he had just faced. Yet he dismissed them, recognizing them as mere training camp instructors whose power was limited. Apple burst into laughter, marveling at Joshua's boldness and the chaos he was creating among the other runners. Inspired by Joshua's performance, Apple declared his own intent to not be outdone. With a powerful surge, Apple too unleashed his true speed, closing the distance between himself and the frontrunners. Witnessing the explosive speed of both Joshua and Apple, the other candidates frantically questioned the rules and resolved to follow suit. Joshua continued to widen his lead, generating such a powerful rush that the previously confident opponents were left speechless. The race descended into utter chaos as numerous candidates succumbed to exhaustion or obstacles, their screams echoing across the field. Meanwhile, two senior officials observed the distant chaos, commenting on the peculiar change in atmosphere at the second plaza caused by a strange guy. One official, dismissing the need for intervention, decided to let the strange events unfold naturally. One of the observing officials identified the decision-maker as Instructor Raymond. Instructor Raymond stated that overcoming unforeseen challenges, even those not officially part of the trial, was a true measure of the candidate's abilities. Raymond couldn't help but smile, impressed by Joshua's ability to introduce such unexpected variables into the otherwise predictable race. Joshua's bold moves had indeed ignited the spirit of competition, forcing every other participant to step up their game. These were the rare individuals capable of igniting such a powerful flame of ambition and change in others. An exhausted participant gasped, realizing only one final lap remained in the brutal 30-lap race. Joshua called out to Apel, pushing him forward as the race reached its climax. Joshua questioned Apel's surprising stamina, suspecting a deeper plan behind his current strength. The fallen competitors lamented their inability to use mana, a power that could have spared them from such utter exhaustion. Despite the brutal effort, Apel managed a sly smile, perhaps hiding an unexpected reserve of energy. Joshua chuckled, amused by Apple's attempts to conceal his own powerful mana usage during the challenge. The two young men pushed harder, their footsteps pounding against the ground. After an intense struggle, both Joshua and Apel had successfully completed the trial, passing to the next stage. News of an unusually interesting candidate from the third training camp began to circulate among the higher ranks. The report came directly from Instructor Raymond, who had personally witnessed the candidate's unconventional performance. The recipient of the news expressed surprise that even the notoriously discerning Raymond was impressed by this new recruit. This piqued the interest of the unseen figure, who now wished to learn more. The enigmatic man with the eye patch, intrigued, demanded to know the name of this remarkable young candidate. Meanwhile, a new crowd gathered in a vast courtyard, anxiously awaiting the results of the rigorous trials. Despair swept through the plaza as many candidates learned of their failure, their dreams of advancement shattered. Apple celebrated his success, while Joshua, observing the reactions, pondered the true meaning of passing these initial stages. Joshua, recalling memories of a past life dominated by war and compulsory conscription, began to piece together the implications of this trial. He realized that if people were actively seeking entry into this service, it must be an era of peace, a stark contrast to his past. Apple approached Joshua with a wide smile, congratulating him and acknowledging their new status as fellow recruits. Joshua offered a curt affirmation, his mind still processing the deeper significance of their success. Apple pointed to the official document, revealing his age as 13, a detail Joshua had not yet noticed. Apple expressed his hope that they would be assigned to the same platoon, a sentiment Joshua reciprocated. With only a week remaining until their official enrollment, Apple inquired about Joshua's plans, but Joshua vaguely replied that he had matters to attend to. Joshua's focused stare suggested a focus on a crucial task he planned to complete within the short week. Apple playfully tried to extract more details, but Joshua vaguely mentioned needing to purchase some items. Apple, surprised, then offered practical advice about the harshness of military boots and the necessity of bandages to prevent blisters. Joshua acknowledged Apple's advice as a painful reminder of his own past life experiences with such harsh conditions. Joshua thanked Apple for the helpful warning, maintaining his unassuming demeanor, while Apple casually brushed it off. Apple then pressed Joshua again about his own plans for the week, and Joshua once more offered a non-committal answer. Joshua hummed thoughtfully, subtly prompting Apple to elaborate further on his own vague statement. The two young men part ways, agreeing to meet again in 1 week for enrollment. As Joshua wears a confident smile, an enigmatic hooded figure stands behind him, watching every move. The observant elder, who had been secretly watching Joshua, asked about his recent companion, whom Joshua identified as April. The elder asks Joshua why he really joined the military, while Joshua briefly thinks of his alias, Damien. The elder mused that someone who handles mana so skillfully could not be ordinary, catching Joshua's attention. A flashback showed Joshua teasing April during their run about April's seemingly arrogant claim, which April playfully denied. Joshua, still in the flashback, confessed that despite the challenges, the military was the only place he belonged. A subtle smile played on Joshua's lips as he concluded his internal reflection. The elder's curious, "What?" pulled Joshua back to the present moment, ending his reverie. Dismissing the matter, Joshua ordered the elder to proceed, who then confirmed that all preparations were complete. Annoyed, Joshua reminded Alan not to use his real name in such a public place. Joshua steps into the bright, crowded streets of the capital. As he moves through the marketplace, the city's energy surprises him. Watching a market dispute, Joshua realizes this capital is far different from the one in his memories. A grim memory flashes back, starving people begging for even a single piece of bread. Back in the present, Joshua knows this peaceful atmosphere will change within 5 years. To prepare for the future, Joshua resolved to first locate the Work Trading Guild. Joshua knew that in the coming era of wars, artifacts, weapons, and especially food would become the most vital resources. He understood that this shift would dramatically elevate the importance and influence of trading guilds. A flashback to the past revealed Joshua on a harsh battlefield, recalling that the Work Trading Guild had been the wealthiest on the continent. Another soldier informed Joshua, whom he addressed as commander, that humanitarian aid was approaching their camp. These crucial supplies were confirmed to be from the very same Work Trading Guild. One soldier cursed, expressing frustration that while some risked their lives on the battlefield, others accumulated vast wealth. Joshua sharply reminded the soldier that without the grain and weapons provided by the guild, they all would have perished long ago. The chastened soldier quickly acknowledged Joshua's point, admitting his comments stemmed from pure envy. The scale of that charity made it clear the guild carried unusual influence. Joshua then carved his soldiers to line up and receive the much-needed aid. He watched as his exhausted soldiers quickly dispersed to receive the supplies. A soldier then informed Joshua that the man approaching was the manager of the Work Trading Guild. Joshua questioned the identification, and the soldier then pointed out the manager in white robes, adding that he appeared rather unpleasant. The flashback ended, returning to the peaceful, bustling streets of the present-day city. Joshua considered the fact that the Work Trading Guild had been involved in extensive charity even before the war. He began to mentally narrow down his options, surmising that only a handful of powerful guilds would remain relevant. He decided to begin his search by investigating the largest and most charitable trading guilds in the city. Several days pass as Joshua continues his search. Exhausted, Joshua wonders if this final address will finally lead somewhere. When he pushes open the heavy wooden door, he finds something unexpected. An employee approached him with a polite inquiry about his business. Joshua, posing as an investor, stated that he had heard of the Hamel Trading Guild's charitable work and wished to discuss contributing to their efforts. The employee complimented Joshua's noble intentions, while Joshua noted that his previous leads had been fruitless. But this guild still needed verification. The manager introduced himself as Work, the head of the Hamel Trading Guild. Joshua realizes he may have found the right contact, then introduces himself as Damien and takes a seat. After they were seated, Joshua asked the manager if he had a son, which caught the man off guard. The manager chuckled, clarifying that he had a daughter, not a son, leaving Joshua disappointed by yet another unexpected discrepancy. Joshua looked over his shoulder, startled by a new arrival at the door. As a voice announced her return, Joshua's eyes widened in deep surprise. A beautiful young woman entered, her appearance strikingly reminiscent of the white-robed figure from Joshua's memories of the Work Trading Guild. The manager introduced Joshua to his daughter, explaining that he was a potential investor in their charitable endeavors. The daughter smiled charmingly as she greeted Joshua. She then directly questioned Joshua about his intention to invest in their charity. Joshua's mind raced as he struggled to reconcile his memory of the work trading guild being led by a man with a striking resemblance and similar age of the woman before him. Joshua grappled with the startling possibility that his memory of the guild's leader was entirely wrong, or that his identity had been misrepresented. The manager's daughter, sharp and direct, pressed Joshua for the exact investment amount, noting its importance for the guild's plan. Joshua responded with a strategic plan, stating he intended to increase his investment over time based on the guild's future performance. Both the manager and his daughter gasped in shock at Joshua's staggering initial offer of 300 gold. The manager, recovering from his shock, cautiously inquired about Joshua's specific expectations for such a substantial investment, given he framed it as more than a simple donation. With a faint smile, Joshua declared his intention to acquire a stake in the Hamel Trading Guild and receive dividends from its profits. The manager marveled at the young investor's bold ambition, contemplating how someone so young could command such a significant sum. He then politely but directly questioned Joshua about the mysterious source of his large fortune at such a young age. Joshua smoothly dismissed his concerns, explaining that the funds were an inheritance from his deceased parents, which he intended to use for a worthy cause. The manager accepted Joshua's explanation, apologizing for his intrusion, to which Joshua responded with understanding, diffusing any tension. The manager stated that a decision on Joshua's proposed share in the guild would require a council meeting, and requested time to provide an answer. After Joshua's departure, the daughter noticed her father's thoughtful silence and asked what was on his mind. The manager admitted his amazement, remarking on Joshua's youth, but also his exceptionally mature and sharp stare. He then playfully mused that if Joshua were just a few years older, he would be a perfect match for his daughter, catching her off guard. The daughter reacted with intense embarrassment, vehemently protesting her father's unexpected and embarrassing suggestion. Her father only laughed, pressing the joke further until she sharply demanded he stop. After the Hamel Trading Guild meeting, time passes quickly, and enrollment day finally arrives. As he looked up at the vast sky, Joshua quietly reflected on his journey and the path ahead. He vowed that even though his past life was gone, this time his destiny would unfold entirely differently. With firm determination, Joshua declares his ultimate ambition: to conquer and control the empire itself. Joshua enters his assigned barracks and studies his new placement in the training camp. He scanned the room, noticing a distinct lack of familiar faces, especially Apple. Joshua lamented being without his only peer, just as a new imposing figure made his entrance with a booming greeting. The man introduces himself as Brian, commander of the 1st Platoon. Brian announced a mandatory inspection of all personal belongings, explicitly banning food and drinks. He sternly warned that anyone attempting to conceal forbidden items, including alcohol, tobacco, or luxuries, would face a very unpleasant night. Joshua recalled that he had unknowingly brought along a prohibited item, contradicting a shop owner's earlier assurance. With a final, sharp command, Brian ordered all recruits to lay out their belongings for inspection. Brian quickly checked Joshua's few items, finding nothing out of the ordinary. Brian then paused, curiously asking Joshua's age, noting how exceptionally young he appeared. Brian seemed taken aback by the answer, confirming Joshua was only 13. Meanwhile, other recruits on a nearby bunk exchanged disparaging glances, questioning Joshua's presence at such a young age. Joshua subtly acknowledged the disdainful whispers, his expression turning serious. Joshua dismissed the insult, deeming it unworthy of a direct response, yet a quiet anger began to simmer. His eyes glowed crimson as he vowed to repay the insult, promising to teach his tormentor the true sting of a snot-nosed brat. The insulting recruit shivered inexplicably, feeling a sudden chill, then quickly shifted his focus to someone else. Brian had turned his attention to the insolent recruit, sternly demanding he empty his bag, despite the recruit's protests of compliance. Brian's smile twisted into a chilling grin as he threatened to personally search the recruit's belongings if he continued to resist. The panicked recruit quickly conceded, frantically pulling out several hidden items from his bag. Brian then issued a final, stern warning to the entire platoon, asserting that he would personally uncover any attempts at concealment. The recruits were drained after the intense day, their exhaustion palpable. Joshua observed the scene with a faint smile, acknowledging the effective display of power. Brian concluded that the inspection was finally over. Brian then announces his next task, choosing an interim leader for the platoon. He pulled out a crumpled paper from his pocket, beginning his search for the right candidate. Brian smiled, having discovered a recruit in their platoon who had passed the entrance exam with exceptional marks. Looking up from the paper, Brian asks for the recruit registered as Damien. Brian's gaze fell on the insolent recruit, but he mused that character was as vital as skill for a platoon leader. Brian engaged the recruit in conversation, presumably assessing his temperament. Brian's eyes widened in surprise as he realized the identity on the paper was not the recruit before him, leaving him to wonder who it was. Brian's gaze locked onto Joshua, a sudden realization dawning on him. Brian confirmed that Joshua was indeed the recruit with the outstanding exam performance. The insulting recruit, Kane, exploded in anger, outraged at the thought of Joshua, whom he considered a mere brat, being appointed platoon leader. Brian sharply ordered the protesting Kane to keep quiet, but the man defiantly questioned the decision. Kane vehemently argued that a platoon leader, replacing the commander, required proven leadership qualities, implying Joshua lacked them. He declared that if such a brat were to lead, the entire platoon's discipline would collapse. Joshua mused that while he didn't care for the leadership position, Kane's persistent provocation was becoming intolerable. Joshua smiled at Kane, declaring his readiness to play by his rules and prove his superior capability. Brian, addressing the insolent recruit by his name, Kane began to state his decision regarding the platoon leader. Brian's grip tightened on Kane's shoulder, his voice dropping to a dangerous warning about further disrespect towards his comrades. Brian conceded that Kane's arguments about leadership experience held some merit, yet Kane remained furious, unwilling to accept Joshua's potential appointment. To settle the dispute, Kane challenges Joshua to a duel, saying the winner should lead the platoon. Brian then turned to Joshua, asking if he accepted the challenge. Joshua, seeing an opportunity to assert control, readily agreed to the duel. Kane appeared startled by Joshua's unexpected confidence and quick acceptance of the fight. Brian, confirming the arrangement, prepared to oversee the impending contest. Without delay, Brian led the recruits and the two combatants towards the training grounds. Kane's focused stare signaled his readiness to commence the decisive match. The contestants and their audience gathered at the training ground, poised for the showdown. With both fighters ready, tension rises across the training ground. Brian officially declared the duel underway, and the two rivals faced each other. Joshua observed Kane's physical display with a silent, dismissive smile, eager for the actual fighting to begin. Kane launched his attack with explosive force. Fueled by rage, Kane charged at Joshua, vowing to make him pay for his insolence. Joshua easily dodged Kane's rapid assault, assessing his opponent's skill as decent, but ultimately incomparable to his own. Kane's eyes widened in shock, shocked that Joshua had so evaded his punch. Kane pressed his attack, determined to land a hit and calling Joshua useless, convinced he had Joshua trapped. With blinding speed, Joshua vanished from Kane's path, leaving his furious strike to hit nothing but air. As Kane frantically searched for his opponent, Joshua reappeared directly behind him. Joshua unleashed a devastating blow, striking Kane squarely in the chest. Joshua assessed his opponent, expecting Kane to be incapacitated. To Joshua's surprise, Kane gritted his teeth and struggled to push himself back up. Overwhelmed by rage, Kane swore to destroy Joshua, determined to fight until the very end. Joshua, still dodging Kane's wild attacks, decided it was time to end the duel. With swift precision, Joshua delivered a powerful punch that sent Kane reeling. Kane collapsed onto the ground, defeated by Joshua's final strike. From the ground, Kane can only accept that the fight he started ended in total defeat. As Joshua brushed off his hands, the surrounding recruits stared in silence at the outcome. Joshua then turned to the other recruits, his gaze challenging anyone else to step forward. The other recruits, intimidated, clearly wanted no part of challenging Joshua. Brian officially concluded the duel, declaring Joshua the victor. Kane, still shaken from the defeat, decided to leave the training grounds. Kane walked through the infirmary, seething with shock at having been knocked out and brought there. Reflecting on the fight, Kane realized he had lost consciousness after Joshua's very first precise strike. Kane stood defeated, his pride shattered by the humiliating loss after believing himself unrivaled among the recruits. As Kane opened the door and entered the room, the other recruits looked up in surprise. The recruits exchanged uncertain glances, wondering how they should approach the defeated Kane. Joshua watched Kane intently, curious to see how he would react after such a devastating defeat. In a stunning display of submission, Kane knelt before Joshua, declaring his defeat and pledging to follow him as his new leader. Joshua was taken aback by Kane's unexpected declaration of loyalty. Kane justified his submission by stating that showing respect to the strongest warrior was everyone's duty. Joshua inwardly mused that while he initially thought Kane was just a brute, he hadn't expected such a strong sense of etiquette. With a gesture of acceptance, Joshua extended his hand to Kane. Joshua and Kane acknowledged their new dynamic with a handshake. A week passes in a blur of harsh training that pushes the recruits to their limits. The instructor ended the brutal training and then specifically called Joshua to follow him. Joshua wondered why he was being called away so, and where they were headed. Joshua speculated they might be going to headquarters, given the formal setting. Upon entering, Joshua noticed several other recruits had already gathered there. One of the recruits scoffed, openly mocking Joshua's slender build and calling him a shrimp. Other recruits compared Joshua's slender frame to Cain's bulk, finding the contrast comical and implying Joshua's inadequacy. The taunting recruit intensified his provocations, challenging Joshua's gaze and making further insults. The disrespectful recruit continued to openly sneer at Joshua. A new, authoritative figure commanded silence, reprimanding the recruits for their disruptive behavior. While the arrogant recruit fumed at being silenced, Joshua maintained his composure. The commanding officer's steady gaze swept over the room, ensuring his authority was understood. The recruits snapped to attention, collectively affirming their understanding and compliance. The officer then dismissed all the recruits, ordering them to return to their barracks. However, Joshua was once again singled out, preventing him from leaving with the others. The taunting recruit and the red-haired recruit were revealed to be squad leaders, with the officer reprimanding the former for disrespect. The officer dismissed the others, but Joshua subtly challenged his aggressor with a defiant smile, ready for a confrontation. Another recruit, seeing the tension, tried to lead Joshua away, and Joshua seemingly complied. However, Joshua abruptly stopped, as if rethinking his departure. Joshua's former taunter confronted him again, revealing he was the leader of the 4th squad, to which Joshua responded with a sharp, promising smile and a direct challenge for the upcoming games. As they walk away, another recruit asked Joshua if he is the one called Damien. Joshua, surprised, questioned how the recruit knew that name, and the recruit explained he'd heard it from someone named Apple. The recruit then introduced himself as Gerard, the 3rd squad leader, and looked forward to seeing Joshua compete in the upcoming games. Joshua was jolted by a loud, commanding declaration, demanding everyone's attention. Joshua and the other recruits looked around in confusion, wondering about the sudden announcement. The commanding officer announces the upcoming inter-squad games, a serious battle between squads. Joshua, now holding a banner, declared his squad would achieve 1st place in the games. The declaration landed with dramatic weight, leaving the recruits fired up. Joshua further intensified his vow, proclaiming his squad would defeat the 4th squad. His eyes glowed with determination as he promised to specifically target the 4th squad's leader, reinforcing the personal stakes. The recruits were then gathered at the training grounds for the next phase of their instruction. An officer addressed the assembled recruits, emphasizing that the Army's core goals were competition and victory, and announced a new focus on battle formations. The officer began explaining the detailed scoring and individual incentives for the upcoming team competition. The recruits reacted with excited affirmations, realizing that high scores in these games could lead to placement in elite troops. Joshua's faint smile returned, signaling his strategic readiness for the challenges ahead and his intent to excel. The officer introduced the triangular formation, a crucial offensive strategy for breaking enemy lines, which Joshua began to consider. The instructor explained that while the formation offered immense piercing power, its strength depended entirely on the steadfastness of its vanguard. The officer mused that a powerful leader at the front would make the formation unstoppable, already identifying a prime candidate within his ranks. He ordered the recruits to practice the new formation, instructing them to split into 2 groups and take their positions. Gerard, taking charge, assigned a recruit named Kyle to lead one team while he took command of the other, hinting at an impending challenge. Joshua then offered to provide his teammates with crucial tips regarding the triangular formation the instructor had just explained. When his teammates expressed surprise at his apparent expertise, Joshua revealed that his military father had previously taught him such strategies. Joshua huddled with his teammates, sharing his prediction that the opposing team would form the same triangular formation, and then outlined their counter-strategy. His squad reacted with enthusiastic affirmations, eager to put Joshua's strategic insights into practice. Joshua, wielding a staff, began directing his squad, assigning the strongest members to stand directly behind him and the shorter ones to cover the flanks with shields. He meticulously instructed them on proper shield placement to maximize protection, and his teammates affirmed their understanding and readiness. Joshua observed the opposing squad in the distance, ultimately dismissing any specific concerns about their formation. He declared his intent to break through the enemy formation with a single, decisive blow, urging his squad not to slow down. With a final dramatic cry from the officer, the highly anticipated match officially began. Joshua's squad moved in swift, synchronized steps, following the precise commands for their advance. Joshua noted with a faint smile how smoothly his squad was moving for their first attempt, maintaining a strong offensive formation. As they closed the distance to Kyle's squad, Joshua roared an order to accelerate, intensifying their charge. Both formations surged forward with tremendous speed, hurtling towards an imminent collision. Joshua, now emanating a potent purple aura, decided it was time to unleash his mana, a power he had deliberately held back during previous training. With a powerful surge, Joshua violently smashed his shield forward, breaking through the opposing line exactly as he had planned. Joshua's unexpected tactic of targeting the enemy formation itself, rather than individual opponents, threw them into disarray. Seizing the critical moment of confusion, Joshua intensified his assault with a decisive command. With a powerful kick, Joshua easily swept aside a shield, further disrupting the enemy line. His unstoppable charge sent more opponents stumbling and falling, creating an undeniable opening. The opposing leader, Kyle, roared in frustration, trying to rally his squad amidst their growing disarray. Kyle cursed, realizing his squad was on the verge of collapse and that he needed to act personally. Joshua then directly addressed Kyle, reminding him of their personal matchup. Enraged, Kyle snarls at Joshua by his alias, Damien, ordering him to move aside. Joshua questioned Kyle's demand, making it clear he wouldn't budge. Joshua then deftly disarmed Kyle, sending him reeling backwards in shock. With his opponent subdued, Joshua stood triumphant over the scattered remains of Kyle's formation. Joshua smiled, acknowledging Kyle's physical strength, but implied it was no match for true strategy. A shocked observer remarks that Joshua's abilities far surpassed any rumors. The observer found it hard to believe that someone so seemingly unassuming could be so overwhelmingly effective against fellow cadets. The instructor calls an end to the match, declaring Joshua's squad the decisive victors. Kyle, despite his defeat, shook Joshua's hand, promising a stronger challenge next time. Joshua's innovative strategy captivated his peers, eager to learn his secret. The cadets marvel at his methods, wondering how they could apply Joshua's tactics in future competitions. Joshua felt a sense of satisfaction, seeing his squad's morale dramatically boosted and realizing their newfound confidence boded well for upcoming matches. As the day ended, Joshua stood in quiet contemplation, his next move still uncertain. A group of rival cadets mocked Joshua's squad, pointing and laughing at their perceived weakness. Joshua's squadmates reacted with furious indignation to the insulting remarks. The provocateurs continued to taunt Joshua's squad, dismissing their recent victory and questioning their standing. Another cadet joined in, asserting that Joshua was to blame for taking a leadership role he supposedly didn't deserve. Joshua recognized the instigator, wondering if he was seeking trouble. He decided against engaging in a petty argument, resolving instead to crush them during the upcoming inter-squad games. Joshua was caught off guard by an unexpected development. A rival group, enraged by the initial taunts, loudly vowed to destroy Joshua's squad in the upcoming games. The leader of the opposing squad specifically threatened Joshua, promising a brutal defeat. Joshua questioned which squad was issuing such a bold challenge, identifying them as the fourth squad. The fourth squad glowered with unified hostility, declaring their intent to obliterate their rivals. Inspired by the provocation, Joshua's squad returned to training with renewed fervor, determined to overwhelm the fourth squad. Joshua observed their renewed motivation, realizing the taunts had fueled his team's determination. A subtle smile spread across his face as he concluded that the accidental provocation actually worked to his advantage. Meanwhile, in a stately office, a high-ranking official awaited a report on the new recruits. The official inquired about any promising talents among the trainees, specifically mentioning a company commander named Barris. The instructor, Raymond, continued his assessment, pointing to another notable cadet. The official questioned if these young cadets possessed any extraordinary qualities that set them apart. Raymond confirmed that neither cadet had influential patrons nor any unusual mana capabilities. The official mused on the high cost of mana training, understanding the implications of talent unassisted by such advantages. Raymond noted the cadets' lack of influential backgrounds and ordinary family lives, finding their very normalcy suspicious. The official then shifted the conversation to the recent squad skirmish, and Raymond confirmed Joshua's involvement. Raymond explained that Joshua's youth initially led other squads to underestimate him, yet this only forged a stronger bond and loyalty within his own unit. The official found this unexpected display of leadership and unity quite intriguing. With a decisive snap of his fingers, the official proposed a new course of action. He leaned in, outlining his strategy to a listening Raymond in a hushed tone. Raymond voiced concern that the plan might backfire, but the official asserted that such an outcome would only prove their lack of true capability. The official concluded that if their bonds were strong, the test was worth imposing. leading to his next instruction. He declared that training for both the 1st and 4th squads would be intensified to the absolute maximum. A palpable unease spread among the cadets, sensing an ominous shift in their training regimen. As the cadets questioned the reason for their brutal new training, rumors circulated that it was a unique punishment aimed specifically at their squad and the 4th. The news of additional crawling exercises further escalated their shock, as they questioned the disproportionate severity of this punishment for a mere skirmish. One cadet nervously asked Joshua if such extreme training was normal, to which Joshua mused about the prospect of crawling. Joshua, unperturbed, remarked that the concept of normal was irrelevant given their situation. He then challenged his squad, questioning if they had come here merely to entertain themselves with complaints. Joshua reframed the harsh training as a golden opportunity to surpass other squads in endurance, making them question if they understood its underlying purpose. His squad mates, inspired by his mature outlook, realized they couldn't afford to show weakness if even Joshua held such determination. Joshua acknowledged the upcoming difficulties but promised his unwavering support, rallying his team to face the challenge together. One cadet voiced a fearful question about crawling on rough stones, but Joshua's retort quickly dismissed any hope for comfort. A squad mate commented on Joshua's unnerving familiarity with such extreme training, which Joshua confirmed with a knowing nod. Joshua revealed that he had spent countless hours pressed to the ground in his past, a stark reality to endure for survival. However, Joshua knew the true intent behind the crawling exercises went far beyond simple physical endurance. Joshua explained that as the already brutal tasks are compounded by crawling, bodies become inevitably covered in wounds. As tempers fray and stress mounts, discord within the squads inevitably begins to tear them apart. He deduced that the true purpose of the additional assignment was to test which squad, the 1st or the 4th, would unite more strongly under the severe psychological stress of the training. Recognizing their commander's intentions, Joshua declared that he wouldn't stand idly by and ordered his squad mates to gather all their issued socks. His squad mates were baffled by the sudden and strange request for socks, wondering what Joshua had in mind. With a faint smile, Joshua promised to reveal a magic that would protect their bodies during the upcoming brutal training. Soon after, the 1st squad lined up and confirmed their presence as the instructors prepared to commence the intense training. Instructor Nilsson introduced himself as the one responsible for their crawling training, his presence signaling the seriousness of the task ahead. He instructed them on the proper low crawl technique, demonstrating how to push off with their free hand and knees while carrying their spears. Instructor Nilsson then pointed towards the extensive barbed wire obstacle course, challenging them to conquer it with their low crawl technique. The 1st squad responded with a unified, "Ready!" their determination surprising the instructor, who noted a distinct fire in their eyes, unlike the 4th squad. With a booming voice, Instructor Nilsson commanded the 1st group of the 1st squad to advance onto the obstacle course. As the cadets cried out in pain traversing the brutal course, Instructor Nilsson questioned the company commander's intent for giving such intense crawling training specifically to the 4th squad. He continued to observe the struggling cadets, a flicker of suspicion crossing his face. A wave of deep shock washed over Instructor Nilsson, his eyes widening in utter shock. To his astonishment, the cadets were traversing the treacherous obstacle course with an almost unbelievable speed. Completely confused, Instructor Nilsson exclaimed that these recruits were tackling such training for the first time, wondering how they could be performing so well. Snapping Instructor Nilsson out of his daze, a subordinate prompted him to send the 2nd group forward, and he quickly complied. The 1st squad cadets continued their incredible pace, pushing through the brutal course with determined cries. Instructor Nilsson was shocked, wondering how these recruits could move like a pack of hungry berserkers through the barbed wire. Joshua acknowledged the instructor's astonishment, knowing their secret preparation allowed them to excel far beyond expectations. Even Joshua had to consciously moderate his own speed, careful not to reveal the full extent of their advantage too soon. The magic Joshua had promised was revealed. Simple socks cut into makeshift elbow and knee pads, ingeniously protecting them from the barbed wire. The training for the 1st squad concluded, and they were ordered to return to the barracks. As they walked back, Joshua maintained his thoughtful demeanor, reflecting on the day's unusual events. Joshua revealed that his father had imparted an important piece of advice, prompting another cadet to ask for the wisdom. Joshua's crucial advice was to never get caught by an instructor, a warning that proved timely as Instructor Nilsson exploded, discovering someone else's cheating and demanding harsh penalties. The other cadet praised Joshua's sagacity with a booming laugh and a heavy pat on the back, much to Joshua's mild annoyance. Joshua looked forward to the next stage of training, eager to finally delve into the best spear art of the kingdom, which he'd long awaited. Though often scorned and underestimated compared to noble techniques, this particular spear art of the kingdom was, when mastered, unparalleled. Joshua knew the art's true worth. As in his previous life, it had been his sole salvation, a skill abandoned by many who only learned its superficial forms. Through unstoppable practice and the guidance of his mysterious teacher in his previous life, Joshua had achieved formidable strength. Joshua mused about his teacher, wondering if the demanding mentor was still as psychopathic as he remembered. As Joshua walked, he overheard other recruits bitterly complaining about the brutal crawling training and the legitimacy of such harsh methods. Joshua observed the approaching group, recognizing them as the 4th Squad, who had apparently just completed their own arduous training. One of the 4th Squad members, agitated, snapped at his complaining squad mates to silence their incessant grumbling. Joshua and his squad mate watched with focused attention as the tension within the 4th Squad escalated. The protesting cadets challenged their squad leader, questioning his authority and sparking a visible confrontation within the 4th Squad. Joshua's squad mates watched the escalating confrontation, realizing how fortunate they were to have avoided such internal strife thanks to some unknown protection. The furious 4th Squad leader snarled at Joshua's squad, whose laughter seemed to mock their exhaustion and internal conflict. 2 other 4th Squad members expressed their shock, wondering how the 1st Squad could be so energetic despite enduring the same arduous crawling training. Seething with rage, the infuriated cadet vowed to crush the 1st Squad in the upcoming inter-squad games, which were only days away. The furious cadet declared his intention to win the games, a challenge Joshua acknowledged. Time passed quickly, and soon the day of the highly anticipated inter-squad games dawned. All 4 squads had assembled, awaiting the announcement of the competition order for the inter-squad games. As they wait, a taller cadet calls out to Joshua by his alias, Damien. The tall cadet says Joshua seems different, as if something inside him has changed. Joshua brushes off the tall cadet's questions, claiming it is just natural growth. Joshua's squad mates joke that the tall cadet is already big enough and tease him lightly. Joshua wonders if the tall cadet has somehow sensed the change inside him. Joshua's internal monologue confirmed a significant increase in his mana reserves, radiating with newfound power. He revealed that his relentless daily training since entering the camp had directly led to this impressive increase in his magical power. Joshua then turned to another of his squad mates, Kane, with a determined expression. Joshua declared his resolute intention for their squad to achieve an overwhelming victory in the inter-squad games. The top 5 performers in the inter-squad games would earn the right to choose any equipment from a special, powerful arsenal. Joshua knew that most would opt for C-rank weapons or items with one-time magic, but he sought something far greater. He recalled a conversation from his previous life about a unique item, one rumored by a subordinate from the 3rd training camp. That item was a legendary ring with special abilities, boasting permanent effects that placed it at A rank or higher, making it his true prize. Joshua knows he must win decisively and outpace another mana user like Apple. His determination remained unwavering. Knowing that the competition was fierce, the squad leader clapped his hands loudly, rallying their spirits and reminding them of Joshua's declaration for absolute victory. His words ignited a fiery resolve within the cadets, who affirmed their collective determination to win. With the squad united in purpose, the leader announced the pairings for the first stage of the inter-squad games, calling Squad 1 to step forward. Joshua and the rest of Squad 1 moved into position, ready to face their first challenge. The inter-squad games would proceed in 2 phases, an attack stage followed by a defense stage, with the roles reversing for the second round. Failure to capture the flag within the allotted time meant a loss for the attackers, and Squad 2 was now instructed to prepare their offensive. Joshua watched intently as the opposing team began their preparations for the attack. Joshua issued a final reminder for his squad to execute their practice strategy, receiving their firm affirmation, Kane assured Joshua, expressing his unwavering belief in his own abilities. With the order given, the fierce battle between the 2 squads officially commenced. The attacking cadets charged forward with a roaring battle cry, determined to overwhelm their opponents. Joshua's squad held their ground, forming a resolute defensive line and refusing to yield to the onslaught. The attackers realized with frustration that their efforts were futile against Squad 1's impenetrable stonewall defense. An observer noted the unusual density of Squad 1's defensive formation, suggesting it was solely designed for a deep, unyielding hold. The attacking leader sensed a critical moment and urged his forces to intensify their push. Kane, at the front of the defensive line, forcefully repelled the attackers, demonstrating his physical might. Despite the intense pressure and the enemy's unstoppable advance, the cadets were ordered to hold their positions at all costs. Just as an attacker declared their offensive, Kane countered with immense force, sending him sprawling to the ground. The attackers were shocked by Kane's raw power, repelling their charge without a shield. A fellow cadet called for Kane to reinforce their position, recognizing the increasing pressure on their formation. The attacking leader relentlessly commanded his cadets to maintain their offensive and break through the unyielding defense. The attackers grew increasingly confused, unable to comprehend how Squad 1 maintained such cohesion despite identical training conditions. Joshua, spotting a crucial opening in the enemy's formation, commanded Squad 1 to transition from defense to immediate attack. Following Joshua's command, Squad 1 erupted into a ferocious countercharge, overwhelming the shocked attackers. The supervising instructors watched in shock, questioning if Squad 1 had undergone secret training to achieve such unexpected results. The observer concluded that these rookies, despite their basic training, were already demonstrating the prowess of elite, specially trained soldiers. The observer pondered the extraordinary display, recognizing a singular influence behind their impressive performance. The observer realized Joshua was the mastermind, as the young leader urged his squad to fully dismantle Squad 2's collapsing formation. The observer then understood that Squad 1's consistent, voluntary extra training sessions were now clearly bearing fruit. Facing Squad 1's unstoppable assault, Squad 2 frantically attempted to reestablish their defense, adhering to the standard training they had received. The observer, who had initially doubted Joshua's appointment as squad leader due to his youth, now acknowledged his undeniable strength and accomplishments. Joshua spotted the objective flag and called out to Kane, signaling a critical move. Kane, understanding the urgency in Joshua's voice, prepared to execute the new directive. A faint smile spread across Kane's face as he confirmed spotting the enemy flag. Squad 2's leader, in a desperate reversal of strategy, ordered his cadets to abandon their attack and focus solely on stopping Kane. Kane easily surged past the regrouping defenders, demonstrating that their efforts to stop him were futile. Kane paused, mockingly observing Squad 2's confusion as they questioned why he had stopped his advance. With a sly grin, Kane revealed to his confused opponents that they had walked directly into his trap. Kane delivered a decisive blow, effectively neutralizing another opponent. With a swift follow-up, he eliminated yet another of Squad 2's overwhelmed members. The final opponent gasped in defeat as Kane pressed them down, asserting total dominance. He declared time had run out, signifying Squad 2's ultimate failure to seize the objective. Kane then raised the enemy flag high, celebrating Squad 1's overwhelming victory alongside his jubilant teammates. The shocked instructor declared a short break before switching roles, acknowledging Squad 1's impressive and dominant performance. He mused about the undeniable clarity of the outcome, hinting at a potential lack of challenge for Squad 1. The instructor paused, then pointed, preparing to reveal a new idea. He suggested that new opponents might finally prove a worthy match for Squad 1's exceptional skill. A fresh squad burst onto the field, their resolute formation signifying a new, tougher challenge for Joshua's team. A frustrated cadet stomped his foot, cursing the unexpected turn of events. Squad 3's leader, initially dismissive of their current adversaries, anticipated an easy warm-up before crushing Squad 1. His squad members voiced confusion, questioning why their opponents weren't moving and lamenting their defensive failures. The leader of Squad 3 roared in exasperation, demanding to know if his team had forgotten their plan and urging them to follow his original orders. His demoralized squad members criticized their leader's distant commands, lamenting their crumbling cohesion and fading will to fight. Observing their opponent's exhaustion, a Squad 1 cadet named April suggested it was time for them to make their decisive breakthrough. With a faint smile, Joshua replied that their adversaries would naturally collapse given enough time. Apple agreed, then marveled at Joshua's uncanny ability to identify enemy weaknesses and perfectly assess the battlefield, despite his young age. After only 2 weeks, April grew increasingly curious about Joshua's true identity, convinced this extraordinary young man was far from ordinary. Meanwhile, a different squad leader desperately ordered his shield bearers to hold formation and not retreat against an imminent threat. A cadet from Squad 3 shouted, signaling that it was their turn to act. However, the enemy's assault was overwhelming, and Squad 3's shield bearers began to falter. Their leader frantically commanded his shield bearers to hold their ground, knowing their collapse would spell disaster. Amidst the chaos, someone urgently called out Apple's name. Joshua moved with extraordinary speed, charging forward with his spear. He then executed a powerful, sweeping attack, confirming his full engagement in the battle. His assault shattered the enemy's shield wall, sending cadets and their defenses flying. Surrounded by a surge of energy, Joshua maintained a faint smile as he unleashed his full power. His spear struck with incredible force, decimating the remaining shield bearers and their efforts. The Squad 3 leader erupted in a furious outburst, overwhelmed by his team's complete and utter failure. A startled observer watches the unexpected outcome as a new figure enters the scene. Despite the chaos, the announcement declares Squad 1 the victors of the match. Joshua's squad erupted in triumphant celebration for his decisive victory, while an unseen observer recognized him as a formidable opponent. With a faint smile and a burst of purple energy, the red-haired cadet vowed to meet Apple again in the final, eagerly anticipating their next encounter.